We're on. We're good, we're on.
All right, buonasera everybody, and welcome again to another episode of Cucina Quarantena. Tonight, we are going to make something that everybody should know how to make, which is a really basic Bolognese sauce. And Bolognese is just a tomato and meat sauce. It's the typical sauce that people put onto pasta in Bologna, and that's why it's called Bolognese. It doesn't have bologna in it. And actually, I always thought it was weird that bologna was called bologna, and then I saw a mortadella when I was in Rome once and went, oh, that's where that comes from. So we are going to make a typical meat sauce of Bolognese, and I'm actually using a recipe today that I'm going to riff on, because that's kind of how I use recipes. I use them as suggestions, not really as rules. But I wanted to remember the technique on this one, because this is a little bit of a different preparation than maybe you have seen. You could easily make a meat sauce where you just brown ground beef, you throw it in with some vegetables and dump in a can of tomatoes. That's fine. And I've shown you guys how to do that before. But this time, we're actually going to use a technique developed by Marcella Hazan, who is one of the kind of classic teachers of Italian cuisine from the past. And I have to say, you know, all of the celebrity chefs out there that have these goofy TV shows on the Food Network, she, I think, has never been exceeded in her talents. I don't think I've seen a single one of those celebrity chefs on TV that has as practical advice. I mean, and comes as close to just the practical sort of way that Italians cook. Because Italians don't cook flashy, fancy, the way you see a lot of people on TV doing it. They cook using really humble ingredients. So today what we're going to do is we're going to actually base what I'm cooking on the New York Times version kind of Marcella Hazan's classic recipe. If you are going to buy yourself one cookbook on Italian cooking, it should be Marcella Hazan's. I don't actually own it. It's called The Essentials of Italian Cooking. I used to own it years ago and no idea whatever happened to it. So, hey, my birthday's coming up, people who are related to me. Marcella Hazan's Essentials of Italian Cooking, Luca.
I will think about it.
Just saying. 3 weeks until my birthday, man. Clock's ticking. All right, so first thing we're doing is we're chopping up vegetables. And this calls for 2/3 a cup of chopped celery, 2/3 a cup of chopped carrot. Obviously, I have more. I don't really mind. I think that's okay. But when we talk about chopped, that's what I wanted to kind of start off with is what is chopped? Because chopped can be a bunch of different things depending on the recipe. When it says to chop carrots, I tend to chop them pretty finely, because if you consider when carrots are cooking in a sauce or something like that, they're not really going to break down very much. So I think when you're chopping carrots, you have to really make them pretty small. That's a big piece, I think, at Luca. So you want to have them kind of large gravel size. I think that's a good way to put it.
That's better.
Yeah. So each thing, when you talk about the size that it should be cut up, it just really depends on the vegetables. So carrots, I chop a lot finer since they're going to hold their shape more than anything else. And in a pasta sauce, you don't really want big chunks of carrot that you're chomping down on. Now this is going to be simmered for hours. And I know I'm starting late, but the kids and I have not been going to bed until like midnight. So having dinner at 10 tonight is probably fine for us.
I love having dinner at late hours. It's one of the great pleasures of life. Being able to have dinner.
Great pleasures of homeschooling is that clocks don't actually make any difference to us, because we don't really care what time of day it is.
See that thing? You don't rule my life anymore.
Okay, so that's about that's about a chop for carrots, in my opinion. It's kind of that size. A chop for celery is similar. I like to make sure that celery is not in its little shape, like U-shape if I can. But it doesn't have to be chopped as finely as a carrot, because it will break down better. Onions you can leave a little bit more chunky. You see this is a little bit more chunky also, because they'll kind of divide into their foliae like that, you know. And so they'll melt down into just practically nothing. So,
and then if you saw our caramelized onion episode, they get down really mushy and really small.
All right, so we're going to start off with our recipe here. I'm doubling this recipe. As I said, I'm not following it precisely, but it's an interesting technique that I wanted to show you, a different way to go about it. So I'm going to start off putting something in here that you probably don't expect. Almost a whole stick of butter. So we're going to pop that in there. And then we're going to grab some olive oil and drizzle in a good amount of olive oil.
Why both butter and olive oil?
Because butter tastes good, people. I know it's not specifically Italian, but there are certain cases in which we do use butter as well. So this recipe is just a little different because it has dairy in it. And typically when we make meat sauces, they're just meat and tomatoes. They don't have dairy in them. So, Luca, if you could, can you just go give him a shot of what else is going into the pot?
So here we have a sprig of rosemary. We have some couple sprigs of thyme. We have a few leaves of sage.
And those are from the garden. These are not in the recipe, but these are from our garden, and I thought they'd be fun to add in.
We have some white wine. I'm not sure if that's for consumption or the sauce. Wait, which one?
Little column A, little column B.
Okay. We have some whole milk here. I might have just left that out. Are we actually using whole milk?
We are actually using whole milk today.
Huh.
Yep, that's the surprise ingredient.
I thought I left that out for a second.
Nope.
We have a whole 20-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. And we have a whole bunch of beef.
All right. So, as I said, we are loosely following this. I love to put my recipes on my iPad because it's the perfect thing for working on, because you can see things better. So we're going to put the onion in the pot to start with. This recipe doesn't call for garlic, and I think that's a crime. So we are going to put garlic in because, remember, recipes are suggestions. Recipes are not a firm thing. And someday I'm going to write a cookbook for you guys, and my cookbook is just going to be a recipe with all the ways you can deviate from it. Because I am, as Luca knows, Mommy's not good at following directions.
Neither am I.
Yeah. I have raised two unconventional humans, and I'm darn proud of it. Okay, so we're going to brown these. Now always, every time that you're cooking things that start with onion, if you're going to put garlic in, you never put the garlic in at the same time as the onion. And the reason is that the garlic flavor will disappear if you do that. So, I'm going to start with our onion. I hope you guys are comfortable and okay watching me for a little while, because it's going to take a little bit of time to put this together. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this up. I'm using my all-clad pot, but honestly, I would be using this today, except for, you want to see what's in here? I have a sourdough loaf rising. Yeah. Yeah, I made this 2 days ago, and I put it in the fridge, and then it slumped in the fridge downstairs, which made me kind of sad. But it's slowly rising again. So this is going to go with our dinner tonight. I will bake this in a little while, a fresh sourdough loaf.
That's going to be some awful sour loaf.
The reason that you cook sourdough in a Dutch oven like this is that that's how you get that crisp crust, the chewy crust, because it traps the steam that's trying to escape from the bread into the pot. So that's why we do that. Okay. Before I even started cooking this, the kids and I were remarking how the kitchen smells fantastic, and we haven't done anything yet. This is just the chopping stage was enough to make the kitchen smell delicious. So this weekend, what did I make for you guys, Luca?
You made us a delicious Indian buffet.
I did. I made dal, I made naan, I made butter chicken, and I made vegetable korma, which are my favorite dishes. So butter chicken, of course, has butter and tomato sauce, and vegetable korma has coconut sauce. It's like a coconut milk sauce. So that's a really good one if you are not a fan of latticini or dairy products. So, all right. I think we're good. So this calls for a half a cup of chopped onion. I just used a whole onion measure. And now it's calling for 2/3 a cup of celery, 2/3 a cup of carrot. Again, I just did 2 carrots, and I did the part of a celery, and more or less, since I'm doubling the recipe, this looks like about 1.5 cups of each, so, you know, that's fine. And again, if you like one thing more than that, use it. I think that this recipe is not worth making unless you lots and put it in the freezer or put it in your fridge. It should keep for a few days in the fridge, so you can have it one night and then have it a couple of days later if you wish. Okay. Yeah, I've been lately. I kind of decided that if I'm stuck around the house constantly, I may as well learn to do things that I've always wanted to learn how to do, and I've always wanted to learn how to cook proper Indian food. So yesterday was nice. I remember I was thinking when I was cooking Indian food that when Nico was born, our co-op preschool catered my meals for the first 2 months that Nico was alive. We got deliveries on the doorstep. And one of the women at our co-op preschool was from India, and she was my favorite person to see on my doorstep because she made us homemade Indian food, and it was so good. So homemade Indian food actually turns out pretty good. It's easier than you think. Okay, so we're going to brown that a little bit, and then I'm going to toss in the garlic.
Curry is actually a lot like Italian food.
What is?
Curry.
Curry?
It's just like you make sauce and you throw stuff into the sauce.
Yeah, in that way, I suppose so.
Except less tomatoes, unless you're making butter chicken.
Yeah, well, oh, and the thing that I was really proud of was the naan. I'll show you guys the naan that I made. Because Indian's been one of those things I've always thought was worth paying for, just because it was so many ingredients and it was so complicated. But if you have the right spice mixtures in the house, like garam masala, or you can buy curry, you can buy garam masala, you can buy a bunch of the other ones that are more typical. That's all you really need. And then cans of coconut milk and vegetables and stuff. And I just sort of took whatever I had in the pantry. And that's the beauty of making a curry, is if you're doing curry, which we can do one night, that's another way to just empty the pantry. Because you can just throw, it called for potatoes and peas and a couple of other types of things. But I had broccoli and I had green beans, so I just threw them in. And they tasted great, actually. Oh, yeah. That's smelling really good. Okay, so let me show you the naan that I made the other day. So this is a dough that you make with yogurt, and it's super wet. I made it in the bread machine, and then I just stretched it out long and put it onto a baking sheet, and you bake it in a really hot oven, and then when you bring it out, let's see if it's still good.
Oh,
it's still good.
Just like the naan that you buy in the store.
Does it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Maybe a little bit more sour.
Yeah, this is a little tiny.
There's a little bit of that yogurt flavor.
Let's go back to our recipe. All right. So, here we go. I think that's getting nice and brown. Yes, Dave.
Here's a question about the star system by Sueberry Foley. Can somebody explain stars? How do you get them, and why do you, why do you give them?
Oh, okay. So this is something new that Facebook offered to let me try. It's a new system that they're attempting to do for people who have large followings, as a way to kind of help us to make a living. So what you can do is you can buy the stars from Facebook, and then if you're watching a video and you want to send stars to me, I think each one's worth a penny. So if people send 50 stars, that's 50 cents, which maybe doesn't seem like a lot, but actually, if a bunch of people do it, adds up. So that's a way that you can help to support me buying my teenager who's 6'5" new shoes, because
I already have new shoes.
oh yeah, because I just bought you new shoes. Yes. So they cost me, the groceries in this house for 2 teenagers who are both growing like weeds, over $175 a week in groceries, which I actually never tracked that before. I've never had to track it because it's always been fine. I just go to the grocery store, but I also haven't ever grocery shopped once a week like I'm doing now, because I don't want to go to the grocery store very often. I'm either making an order from Amazon, or I'm going to the grocery store once a week. And it's really weird doing that, because for the first time in my whole life, I'm tracking exactly how much it costs me each week to feed the kids. And it is $175 a week, which is just like scandalous.
I bet we could cut that down to $100.
Ha ha ha. Says the man who likes fine cheeses and expensive bread.
Yeah, I'd be willing to give that up.
All right. Okay, so now
We should do it as like a challenge.
I'm ready to toss in the ground beef. So this should be, it calls for 3/4 pound. So this is probably about 1.5 pounds, I'm guessing. Yeah, that looks like about 1.5 pounds. And this is just kind of cheap ground beef. This is the kind you get in the big bale, the big tube at the grocery store. And I get the slightly fattier one, which I know maybe isn't so great for your waistline, but the fattier one always makes everything you make with it taste better, whether it's burgers or whatever. So this is an important part in making a bolognese. When you put your meat in there, you gotta really intentionally start breaking it up into pieces as small as possible. So let's get it smashed up.
Do you want there to be like chunks of meat in there, or do you want it to be like just completely distributed in the sauce so it's blends in with vegetables?
That's up to you. I personally like to have a bolognese sauce that doesn't have big chunks of meat. I like it to have fine granules of meat in it. So I'm going with very small pieces. And dang, that just already smells so incredibly good. I wish we had smell-o-vision, you guys. I would so happily love to pump this smell into your living room right now, because it smells so good. Hey, and that reminds me, by the way, you guys, if we all get stuck here for the rest of the year and I don't get to go traveling to Europe, I may resurrect my dinner party like I did in January, and that is invite anybody who wants to over to my house for a in-person cooking class. So I may do that later in the summer if anybody wants to do that. If you live in the Seattle area, I live in central Seattle, and I thought would be kind of fun. I did that with my friend Alfredo, and it's really super cool. And the price included the lesson in how to cook and lots of wine. So
lots and lots of wine.
With that idea, I'll try to find some dates this summer. We have a really nice big backyard, so it'd be fun to take people outside and show them how to cook in the outdoors.
I remember my memory of the party was just my memory of the party was mostly just running up and downstairs trying to get as much white wine from the fridge as possible.
Yes, we did use quite a lot of wine. I think we bought 2 cases of wine for 20 people, and we ended up using all of it. All of
it plus more.
All of it, yeah, I did. I had to dive into my collection.
But then again, that was because some of your friends came over.
It was, well, yeah. Friends, yeah. Everybody who came was a friend, basically. So, friends I just haven't met yet. Okay, so now
that's
you can
what
see
strangers
the consistency
are, though.
here. That's the consistency I'm talking about, is you want to really break up the meat super well here. And I'm cooking this over a high heat. And some people have been asking me about the spatula and where to get spatulas. I do promise you this week I'm going to try to get a resource list together of all of my favorite pieces of cookware and tools and things I've been showing you that I'm using on here. This has taken me 25 years to amass the perfect kitchen, and I really feel like I have all the perfect tools. And like I told you guys, I used to work at a cooking store in the University Village on occasion, and so I really got to outfit my kitchen. In my mid to late 20s, I outfitted my kitchen with some really great gear, and my goodness, is that worth your time to spend money on good gear. All right, so next thing. Okay. Yep, that looks pretty good. So now we're going to add
le poivre.
Pepper. I have lots of pepper. You could add cayenne to this or pepperoncini if you wanted to have a little bit of spiciness. Which reminds me, one of the things we should do is we should do puttanesca one day. Prostitute sauce, Luca. Luca's going to be too scandalized to film that when I do puttanesca.
Nico's going to need to film that one. He's the inappropriate one around here. Yeah. It's definitely not me that's inappropriate.
All right, so I'm doing a pretty healthy shake of salt, just because, remember, sauces should be a little bit saltier than you think they need to be. All right. Oh my gosh, that smells so good. Jeez, how does that smell so good already? We haven't even done anything. All right, so.
Oh, it smells like, oh.
Yeah, this is the weird part. So, whole milk. 2 cups of whole milk. And I know this seems super weird, but you cannot deny Marcella Hazan. She knows what she's doing. So, let's go ahead and add the milk in. I know this looks weird. So we're gonna let this start to bubble down.
Oh, because it's gonna turn into like a cream sauce.
No, it doesn't. It's just, it kind of has a creamy consistency, but what the milk does is it really tenderizes the meat as it cooks. So it gives the meat kind of a velvety texture. So this is that little piece that is a trick that most people probably have never even tried, putting milk in there. There's so many little tricks to authentic Italian cooking that I've learned, and I just do it because that's how it's done, but a lot of Americans don't know how to do that stuff, so it's fun to teach. Okay, and then a little bit of nutmeg. I like whole nutmeg if you can find this in the grocery store, because it tastes completely different than the grated kind you get in a jar. So if you can find it, it's really cool looking when you grate it. And use microplane. So nutmeg is one of those funny little spices that can really, really add a punch of flavor just with a tiny little bit. So we're going to do about a 1/4 teaspoon.
Did you know that this is why that little clove of nutmeg, I don't think that's what you call it, but that's why the Dutch conquered Indonesia. Because it used to be, nutmeg used to be more per ounce, used to cost more per ounce than gold.
I did not know that, Luca. Thank you for your... Every day I learn something new from my son. He's our history buff in the house. Right. Luca's our history buff, and Nico is our literary genius. He always comes up with wonderful zingers or commentaries. Mm. So, and I don't know what my role is. I'm just ringmaster at the circus, that's all. Okay, so that's going to bubble away a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. So while that starts bubbling, I'm going to set up the wine. It's going to take a cup of wine. So in this case, it's actually 2 cups. And look at the wine I'm using today. This is Giallo di Siena. I'm sorry to my friend Roberto for using this for cooking, but it just happens to be the one that's open. So as soon as I put it in my cooking, I'm going to drink a glass. This is from Roberto's farm, Madonna Bella in Tuscany, which some of you guys ordered some wine and olive oil from him.
Buy his stuff. It's really high.
Good.
It's really high quality. Yeah. It's like some of the highest quality that you can get.
Oh, I hate to put it in here when there's milk in here, but it's all going the same place, so it doesn't really matter.
Roberto Becky would throw a fit.
Yeah, Roberto, don't watch. Okay, I'm not doing I can't do 2 cups. I can't bear it. I don't have any other white wine in the house right now, and I opened that up 2 days ago and had 2 glasses with a friend of mine, and now it's been sitting in the fridge, and so I'll go ahead and grab. Why don't you go grab me a wine glass, Luca?
All right. You hold the camera.
All right. Thank you, sir. So we have some nice bubbling here. And that looks really good. Yeah, the smell is fantastic also. Okay. All right. And then over here we have our white wine, which is waiting, but I think I want this to be a little bit more dry. So just, if you guys don't mind hanging on for a second.
Oh, wow. That smells nice.
I really don't let my 15-year-old drink wine. He can smell it, though. He's allowed to smell it.
It smells like fruit.
All right, there you go. It's really good. So, a lovely glass of wine. Okay, so once this is done, see, again, I'm just riffing on the recipe. So the recipe says it needs to bubble away completely, which that seems like that's going to take a long time. So we'll just hang out here for a few minutes if you guys don't mind. Actually, what we might do is, while this bubbles, Luca, do you want to take them quickly out to the garden and show them how to take a little garden interlude.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead and show people how everything's growing.
So, our beautiful porch. And here is a couple of asparagus, asparagios. I don't know. But yeah, and we get our chives from here. And I'm sure my mom said this 100 times, but the nice thing about chives is that they grow back once you clip them, so it's infinite. And our blueberries are here, and this is bedroom window. And then back here, we have our lettuce or spinach, I can't remember which, and our raspberries. And these are doing really well for some reason. I don't know what it is. It's just, they're growing out of control. Let's see. And some of the things that's really cool that have been happening recently is over here. These two beds didn't used to be here. This used to be a fence. And so now we have some really nice, I don't even know what's planted here. Those look like pumpkin leaves. I'm not sure. But yeah, we grow onions and leeks. Those are probably, those are one of the two. We used to grow corn back here a whole bunch of years ago. Tomatoes here, which are going to be really nice because in the summertime when the tomatoes are really ripe. No, that might be in September. But we like to make little caprese sandwiches where you have a little bit of really nice buffalo mozzarella and a slice of tomato, which we get from here, and some basil, which is somewhere in the spice garden or somewhere, I don't know. And you put that together with a little bit of olive oil and salt and pepper, and it's really nice, and it's delicious. Carrots there. And this is our Asian pear tree. Those are really good in the fall. And here's some big honeysuckle bush here, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Right here used to be the kids patch. It got a bit overgrown, so we kind of refurbished it, and now it's looking really nice. And more peas over there with their white flowers, and all the irises aren't blooming. Oh, that one is. Look at that. That is a shot. Yeah, and we planted a whole bunch of strawberries, and we're going to be able to eat those, and they're going to be really good. Yeah? All right. And so now, back in we go.
The garden's growing really well. So. It has been really fun, actually, being home and being able to garden for the first time in a long. Thank you for that gardening interlude, Luca.
Oh, here's a question from Sueberry Foley.
Yeah.
We keep bags around our plants. Those are the tomatoes. It keeps the humidity. I think there's water in those bags, and so
those are called wall of water, and they are a really cool thing. So there's two things going on out there right now. I have walls of water, which are thick plastic sort of tubes that are connected. You fill them with water, and then it creates a warmer atmosphere for tomatoes. So I just leave them around the tomatoes the entire year. This year I'm also experimenting with red mulch, which is the red plastic out in there, and that keeps down weeds and also heats up the soil. So I'm actually doing kind of a controlled scientific experiment this year because I have some with just the wall of water. I have some with the red mulch and the wall of water, and I have some just with the red mulch, and they were all started from seed at the same time. So this is how nerdy I am. Can you tell? The architect in me is coming out in my gardening. So I'm going to make notes about what the best technique is for my gardening. So now when you look in here, you can see that the milk is basically gone. I mean, there is no milk left. So it's been kind of absorbed by the meat. And so the theory on this is that it should tenderize the meat. So milk is essentially gone. And really, what is that smell you get, Luca, when you smell it?
Ooh, it smells like steak.
Yeah, and nutmeg. I think you get the nutmeg really strongly. So it makes a big difference to have quality ingredients in certain spaces. You know, I'm fine using cheap ground beef, but I definitely would use a higher quality spice like nutmeg. Okay, so we're going to add the wine in. And we're going to let this come to a boil. And then we're going to add the tomatoes. And this is again where I'm going to riff a little bit on the traditional recipe. It doesn't call for any herbs, but I have some nice fresh herbs from the garden. So I have sage and oregano and rosemary that just came in from my garden. I'm not going to chop these up because I don't want them to give a really strong flavor. So what I'm going to do is leave them whole like this, and they're each on their own stalk, like this. And this is, at this point, I'm just going to put them in and let them kind of flavor by way of boiling. It's going to give it a chance to just sort of give it a vague flavor. Rosemary you got to be real careful with because it is so stinking strong. If I put too much of it in or if I chopped it up, that's the only thing you'd be able to taste in this sauce. And I think that's probably why Marcella Hazan does not suggest any herbs, because you don't want to overpower the other flavors. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to soak them in the sauce for a couple of minutes like this while it's boiling and while that white wine comes out. So the white wine is going to boil off. It seemed like an awful lot, I know, but it will kind of go into the sauce. I do recommend, if you can, to use a good quality white wine. I know it's hard to put that much good quality white wine into your sauce, but it'll turn out better. And not only that, the cook gets to have a glass of wine while they cook, so you may as well have a decent glass of wine. So, wow, that smells magnificent. So much more delicious and flavorful smelling than just a straight up ground beef and tomato sauce combination. So as soon as this is done, I'm going to go measure out now our tomatoes. And these are tomatoes that, I think I got these on Amazon. I'm doing a lot of my grocery shopping there, but they're ones that are from Italy. And that's the thing, is if you can get ones that are actually from Italy, they are actually better. I know that seems a little snobby, but they are better. And later in the season, I can make this with hopefully whatever tomatoes come out of my backyard, which that is an unknown at this point. This year in the backyard, I've got San Marzano tomatoes going, which are the traditional ones that are from Italy that are really good in sauce. I've got some Better Boy tomatoes, which are just like a slicing tomato. And I've got some cherry tomatoes, and I've got a couple of heirloom varieties. So those are going to be really fun to see how they do. Typically what I do when I'm traveling is I come home in May, I set up my tomatoes with the wall of waters, and then they just kind of do their own thing. The wall of water, I leave it on the whole year because Seattle is not very warm. I mean, in the summertime we get days that are maybe 85 max. So leaving the wall of water on the entire season really makes a big difference in terms of getting better tomatoes, because it keeps the base of the plant warm. Luca?
Tomatoes are good.
Yeah, okay. This is looking good. So this week, we have a lot of really super cool things coming up on Adventures with Sarah. I will be doing more cooking, but tomorrow is going to be coffee chat. Monday is always coffee chat at 10 a.m. And tomorrow's coffee chat is with my friend Jorge, who is in Madrid in Spain. He's going to be on tomorrow just talking about what life is like in Spain right now. And I haven't been to Spain in so many years. It's fun to talk to the Spaniards. I hope you were able to catch the talk I did with my friend Francisco in Pamplona. That was a lot of fun. So Spain is going to continue. I'm going to talk to Jorge tomorrow. And then later this week, we're going to have Wine Wednesday, or Wines Day. My friend Ben Spencer from Sicily is going to be joining me. He was one of the people that helped advise on the Sicily book and helped me find some good wineries there. So he's going to be talking about Sicilian wines with us Wednesday. And hopefully we'll figure out a bottle that all of us can try together that day. And then on Friday, my friend Anna Piperato from Siena.
Anna Piperato!
She's going to actually take us on a walking tour of Siena. She's going to go outdoors, and that's going to be 11 a.m. on Friday, Pacific time. She's going to walk around Siena and show us her tour guiding skills. She's a tour guiding hostess with the mostest. So that'll be on Friday. So we've got lots of exciting things. We have one other thing coming up too. It's a cooking thing, but I haven't confirmed it yet. So there will probably on Wednesday be a virtual cooking class with some of my friends. All right, so I'm taking these out now because I think that's, especially with the rosemary, definitely enough. I think the sage, that was probably enough. And the oregano as well. So take these little puppies out. And now we'll put in the tomatoes. Yeah, that was plenty. I wouldn't leave the herbs in any longer because it would definitely give too much of an herb taste. So we want a total of 3 cups of crushed tomatoes, which is essentially this entire, yeah, it's the entire can. I wasn't entirely sure, so I didn't want to dump the whole thing out without measuring. So yeah, be sure to pay for good tomatoes. It's really worth it. If you're going to go to all this trouble, and also consider if you went out, this is the thing I find scandalous. If you go out to an Italian restaurant, a good one, and you order good food, it's ridiculous how expensive it is. There's a place in Seattle I love going. It's called Il Terrazzo Carmine. I haven't gone in years because they have the best Italian food in Seattle, but it's scandalously expensive, and pretty much everything that they make, I can make. And so it just seems like, why would I spend $20 for a plate of pasta when I could make that at home? However, when I am going to go about it at home, it's worth spending a little bit more money and buying the quality ingredients because it will make a difference. And that's why all Italian food tastes so much better. They just have better ingredients to start with. All right. So I'm going to bring this to a boil now. And this is the last boil we're going to do. And then we're going to reduce the heat and we're going to simmer it for a really long time. So here is where you could make some adjustments, and just as thoughts for adjustments, if you like spicy, this is where you might want to put in red chili flakes or pepperoncino if you want to make it spicy. This is where if you really do like herbs, you could put in extra herbs. If you like it extra garlicky, which I do, I might even toss a little bit of garlic powder in there along with the fresh garlic because that's a taste that I just really like. So you can personalize this and never ever look at recipes as the word of God. Recipes are a canvas upon which you can paint your own picture. So just always consider that you can riff. And that's why I like cooking so much better than baking. Baking just makes me sad. It's so like constrained. It's so Northern European. I much prefer the right brain crazy kind of nature of cooking where you can kind of do whatever you want. So that looks really beautiful. I'm going to give it a little taste and see how we're doing so far. That is magnificent, even right now, but it's got to boil a long time. Oh. So just have a little hint of the taste to come.
Oh, wow.
All right, so now that we've got a rolling boil. Also notice how much of this is tomatoes versus other things. So by volume, this is hardly tomato. This is probably maybe 20% tomato by volume. Everything else, there's meat, carrots, celery, onions. So the tomato shouldn't be the first thing you taste in a Bolognese sauce. And that's the mistake a lot of Americans make when they make this at home, or any Italian really, is they go way too much with the tomatoes. It should be a background flavor. But the flavor you should really taste is the meat, and all these other flavors enhance the meat. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and lower this way down, as low as it can go. And then, I should have a lid. This is not the lid, but let's pretend it's the lid for now. I have to look for the lid. It might be in the dishwasher. And that's that. And guess what? That is now going to simmer on extremely low. Yeah, that's about, actually I may even put it on a smaller burner because I want it to be, yeah, I'm going to do that actually. Let's do that. I'm going to put it on a much smaller burner on the lowest setting possible So I'll turn that off because I want it to just barely simmer for 3 hours. I know that sounds insane, but that's what happens next, is we let this barely simmer for 3 hours. And when we're done, we're going to have the most velvety, smooth, flavorful bolognese sauce that you have ever seen. So I'm sorry that you don't live next door to me. I'd be really happy to share because that's enough bolognese to feed an army. So there you go. That's Marcella Hazan's classic bolognese pasta sauce. This would be fantastic over really any kind of shape, but typically, just to give you some thoughts about pasta shapes, I would put it over something with ridges, something like a penne with the ridges on it, or it always says rigate, which is ridged. So any of the ridged kind of pasta shapes, or pasta shapes that are really like twists, because you want that sauce to be able to get into all the crevices, so you get a little bite of everything. Yeah. Isis is still here. So there you go. That's our bolognese lesson for today. I hope that that works for you. You should have all of these ingredients in your house. I didn't buy anything special. All of these things were already in my house. And I think it's a really good quarantine kitchen recipe. Yes, Luca?
Sueberry Foley asks, can you freeze it?
Absolutely. So what I would do for freezing it is I would portion out how much you're going to need depending on how many people. So if you're going to be in two people, 1 cup of sauce should be fine for 2 people. And then scale it up from there. 2 cups of sauce would be good for probably 4 people. Portion it out and then put it into freezer bags with the zippers on top, the kinds that are like the gallon size or whatever, depending on the amount. And then what I like to do is I stack them on top of each other flat and put them in the freezer on a cookie tray, so they kind of freeze flat like that and they don't take up much space. So absolutely you can freeze it, and that's why I'm doing a double batch, because I'm going to freeze some of it and we'll use some of it for dinner tonight. So there you go. So tomorrow on Adventures with Sarah at 10 o'clock Pacific time, please join us for our Monday coffee chat. This is becoming, I think, everybody's favorite thing. It's a completely unscripted, there's no subject. It's just a chat between me and one of my many friends abroad, and it will feature Jorge Roman from Madrid tomorrow. So join us then, and we'll see where the day takes us. So ciao, ci vediamo domani. Buona serata a tutti. Mwah.